Let's consider Falcon to be a bird. After all, he is a falcon, and he has a falcon on his head, with its wings extended. A bird is a creature that can fly, unbound by limitations. Limitations that we associate to cause and effect. If we jump, we fall. So, anyway, I think Falcon represents a sort of freedom from limitation. His number is number 7, which is typically associated with luck, lucky 7, and also with spirit, a number often associated with divinity in many cultures. In any case, let's focus on the aspect of luck. Falcon is lucky. He enters races and wins all the time. In story mode we see this, since chapter after chapter he is assaulted by difficulties, unsurmountable obstacles, like being tied to a bomb, having to escape an exploding factory, etc. And he beats all of these one by one. You could say he is very lucky, and also that he is touched by the gods, or divine in some way, very talented. So his luck and his talent are connected. The fact that he escapes all those dangers is simultaneously, I think, due to his talent as a driver, but also to high amounts of random luck. We as the players are the reason he wins. If we lose any of the story mode chapters, he loses too. For his lucky streak to be unbroken, and therefore for the story mode story to be told in its entirety, smoothly, we as players need to beat his game. There's something interesting in how he is challenged to races by two different gangs, Samurai Goros and Michael Chains. Both of those take place before and after the casino scene. I'm going to speculate here for a second that both of these are the same, and that the casino scene is sort of a middle mirror to those two events. I'm going to try to speculate this, but to speculate this I need to go around all sorts of paths. So let's look at the first level anyway. Falcon enters his secret mansion and enters a simulated reality, a virtual world, in which he trains. He trains, it seems, in order to win the Grand Prix, since that's what he focuses on after training on the screen. At the end of the game, he'll have to enter a virtual world again from the same location, his secret base, but something really weird happens this time. So the concept of reality becomes blurred. I say they enter a virtual reality because the setup is the same. A sort of projection of a race course gets placed over the small training garage, like in the first chapter. But this time, the idea is that this virtual race course is something belonging to the creators of the universe, or of all of reality. The creators created everything, and they're challenging him to a race. If we take them at their word, it would mean they created Falcon and his training garage too. Right? They created everything. So this virtual space they're going to, is it more real than the garage? Is it in fact less virtual than the garage? Could it be that the order of reality has been inverted throughout the game? At the start, the garage is the real place, right? It's presented that way, and the racetrack is presented as a projection. But here it would seem, if we take the creators seriously, that the garage is the virtual space. It's turned around, right? Now the floaty purple racecourse may be what we could call reality, and the garage not. However, what happens in that scene is that Falcon beats them, and therefore crowns himself above the creators of the universe and redeems his own garage, I think. I think Falcon makes his own garage real by the end. He makes the world real. I don't know exactly how he has done this, but we'll continue exploring. So next thing I want to look at is the casino. Now, one thing we can say is that it's the most baroque of all the stories, in that it's filled with visual detail. There are things happening at every level of the image all the time, people in the background, in the foreground, etc. It's a very crowded place in terms of action. So I think that there's something bustling in this section of the story, let's say. There is a list of characters for F-Zero, right? The order of their numbers. Their numbers as races put them all in a specific order, and there are a few things about the order this places them in which I find interesting. Nielsen, for example, is portrayed in the games as a legend, a legendary F-Zero racer. He is 8 positions from the center, which would be 15 Biorex. If we take the main 30 GX drivers, let's say, right? And Falcon is also portrayed as a legendary F-Zero racer and is also 8 positions from Biorex, the center. So we have 2 characters who the instruction manuals and so on insist that they are somehow legendary races of a similar kind, like legendary human races, let's say, and they're both placed 8 positions from the center. In the story mode cutscene for the casino scene, Nielsen bumps into Falcon at the bar. Both legends bump. And as they bump, at that very scene, Biorex is on the floor drinking, in between them, so to speak, or witnessing their mirror-like encounter. This is interesting considering the focus this game has on dragons eating humans or beast slaying, as I showed in other videos. Like, for example, another case of this is we have Jack Levin, Biorex, and the Skull as positions 14, 15, and 16 on this list, which form a sort of story. Jack Levin is the prototype of the young, upcoming promise, the fresh talent, or the boy, youth, birth, perhaps. Biorex is the dragon, and the Skull is death. So one way of reading it is that the young boy is devoured by the dragon and then dies, or that youth is transformed into death through the mediating dragon. It's interesting considering that this is what happens when Falcon and Nielsen too meet in some way, because they are at opposite sides of Biorex and also represent youth in the case of Falcon, or at least vitality, and old age for Nielsen. So that there is this double sort of mirroring between youth and old age, or life and death, with the dragon standing as something that unites life and death, or something like that. So I mentioned also somewhere else how in this casino scene Falcon enters and is greeted by Jack Levin, the youthful promise, but is said goodbye to by Nielsen, the veteran racer. So a process of time passing by has happened. Youth has led to age. Falcon has stood between it as an observer or as a sort of processor itself. He is almost like the number 7, divinity itself, processing this youth to death thing, right? He is the process itself by which it happens. It's interesting how this theme of undergoing a certain transformation by being devoured by death or the dragon is felt in the list as a whole. The list, as far as the main 30 drivers, ends with Black Shadow and starts with Deathborn, 0. Black Shadow and Deathborn clearly have some sort of a link which binds them together, as story mode shows, so it feels as if both extremes of the list are connected. However, if you take the extra pilots from AX, so extend the list to 40 drivers, the last one is Phoenix. Now, Phoenixes, the birds, are known, right, for dying and being reborn from their own death. Then Deathborn, his own name, represents this process, being born from death. So the list itself seems to loop around. The Phoenix dies and is death-born. However, we may want to consider the first driver to actually be driver 1, Mighty Gazelle. If so, Deathborn is precisely the process by which Phoenix transforms into Mighty Gazelle. This is interesting because Gazelle is a survivor from the past. He is someone who almost died at the horrific accident in F-Zero lore, and then survived, was brought back to life as a new body, a cyborg. So he represents precisely losing one's body and being reborn in another from ash. And so it's funny because then there is something about this whole process of dying and then being reborn as a robot that this game likes a lot. Or at least it likes the idea of creating a new life, which is a robot. So it likes the Pinocchio kind of idea, or this idea of grabbing, let's say, an insentient body. The Frankenstein idea, right? You grab an insentient body and you bring it to life. There is something about this game that really highlights this idea again and again. There are many characters who have little robot friends, or who are mechanics in some way, who have rebuilt old machines that were died, right? They do this with their own cars, with their own, like, the machines they drive. They do this with them as well. They treat them as people that they are taking care of or rebuilding, right? So there is a whole theme, I think, in this game of grabbing a broken body and fixing it, bringing it back to life, which then happens to Falcon in some way at the bar, because Falcon at the bar is transformed into another body too, into Famicom, right? He becomes Famicom in order to race in the bet race, right? So that people don't recognize him. So he needs to become someone else. He needs to acquire a different identity. But this identity is Famicom, which is the console, right? And obviously, I think it doesn't just represent Famicom. I think that it represents Nintendo itself, or consoles itself, right? That he has become a robot as well, in the sense that the console, the Famicom, is a robot, or a piece of machine. So I think this is why, maybe, right, this body, right, he's transformed into Famicom, and this body is a reference to the console. He's embodying a machine, and this is why this chapter is important. It's where Falcon becomes the game itself that we are playing, and causes a weird sort of time loop. We're dealing with time, since this is an exploration of youth and old age, the passage of time, right? Because in this casino scene, you could say, is contained all of time, from birth to death. It's all contained in the casino scene, right? You enter into the casino, you are greeted by youth, you exit the casino, and you're said goodbye to by death. So Falcon goes through the whole thing. But within that world, he acquires this secret identity that is a machine that embodies Famicom, a console. And so the console is where all of this is taking place, all this that we're seeing. So I think that somehow Falcon transcends time in this moment. This is a point in the game in which he transcends time in the middle of time. And so something extends outwards from there. He becomes the console on which the game is being played, and so he embodies the world, or the meta world, in which the whole story is taking place.